So when you finished up with the Seagulls and you went to Bradford and then
Yep.
you came back to the Raiders, I know you had a few issues. So firstly, it was I think groin and then shoulder,
Yep.
or vice versa,
Yep.
and they really hampered your back end of your career. But was there also I guess the issue of moving away from the Seagulls and the Storm, where you had those really strong connections with Brett Stewart or Billy Slater and that spine
Yep.
kind of hampered the back end of your career as well, just not having that?
100%. Yeah. I think a mixture of all the above, to be honest. Like you, I was so gifted to have, that team, and obviously Brett Stewart and the connections we worked on. I guess it's really hard to find and I guess relive and work on new combinations. Like I had a great 5'8", Terry Pisa, but he was coming back from injury as well, with those Canberra options. But what I worked out pretty quickly in that career was um, the medical team and how the coaching team. I guess I tore my groin down in Canberra, and I guess how it was managed was so different to Manly. And I guess I don't know if there's any right way or wrong way, but obviously I'd done a whole lot more running. Then I ended up tearing the other side, so I'd torn both sides. So
Right.
once again, not many people would have known that, but how I was managed with that injury, I was never going to get on the park, and I guess that's sort of comes back to how they kind of manage. And unfortunately, I only managed 6 games, but I was still injured within those 6 games, which was pretty disappointing because I thought Canberra had such a young team that had so much potential. So I was really excited to go down and work with like Jared Croker and those guys. And we had, God, who was a fullback? What was his name? Josh Dugan. Yeah. So guys like that, and I could see we could strike up a combination, but there's just we had a really good preseason. It was only towards
Blake Ferguson as well, I think.
Blake Ferguson, yeah, he sort of came on a little bit. Yeah, no, he came in a little bit later, I think. But we had a gun forward pack, outside backs. There was obviously enough players there for us to do really well. Obviously Campo got injured again and done his knee, and which was unfortunate. But yeah, it was only the last week of preseason we're doing some opposed, and that's when I tore the groin. So just really bad timing. And
Yeah.
it was the same groin I tore from 08. So just the luck had run out, unfortunately. But obviously to find those combinations, you don't realise how lucky you are. And if I had my time over again, I would have loved to stay rather than venture overseas. But I seen the opportunity to go overseas, and look, Manly are in a really good position too because they had Kieran Foran coming through and Daly Cherry Evans. And I had an opportunity to go over and I actually kind of think about my future and set up a retirement fund, and kind of, but you don't really understand that once you leave the country, all those relationships and networks that you, I guess, worked on and discovered and made friendships and everything, you kind of lose those really quickly.
Yeah.
And those combinations are really hard to find. So you've got to stick with them while you can. That's the lesson I've learned. And if I had my time over, I probably wouldn't have done. I probably would have been. But would those players behind me still be at Manly if I was there? I don't know. Those guys might have got fussed. They were ready to sort of take in the first grade. And I took all that into account as well. And I thought, well, when I came to the Seagulls and where we've gone to, I've left it in a better place, and I've achieved all the things I've achieved. So I've kind of done my role. It was my time to move on. I didn't want that team to break up, majority of it. And Kieran Foran just made his first grade debut that season, and Cherry was more than ready. So I thought they were right to do their next, start their next chapter, and it was their time kind of thing.
You didn't have too many games though in the Super League and Canberra. You're just injured a lot of the time, so you probably finished it the right way. I think. You look at Cherry Evans at Foran. Did you play much of a hand in their, I guess, development in the early days? How much of them did you see?
A fair bit. We worked, especially with those guys playing in the 20s, and Foz coming up to first grade. Would always be amongst training and doing stuff with those guys. But I'd always ask those guys when they came in at half time or whatever, what's the field doing? What's the wind doing? Give some tips, and those guys would, I'd pick their brains. And they're just both natural footballers. They knew exactly what they were doing. We had a good relationship. And
so you got an idea of what they were doing in the match before, like the match, and they would guide you kind of with the conditions. And
yeah, I'd definitely have a chat and say, like, what's going on? What's your thoughts? What's the wind doing? And they're both smart enough to tell me, and that sort of made my decision about how we're going to approach the game. So I've definitely had that relationship. They're both really good kids coming through, and I think you can still see that in their football. There's competitors, right, and they're leaders of the game. So
when you look at, say, the Panthers now, they've gone like on a streak that we haven't seen for a long time, especially with the salary cap at the moment, the way it is. But they've failed in their 2 attempts with the World Club Challenge, I think against St. Helens. I think for a long time, people have had the perspective that NRL is on a different level to the Super League. It's kind of like you play a lot of the elite players when they finish their career in the NRL, they head over to England. It's not as in the intensity is a little bit less, or there's not that same media scrutiny. What was it like back when you with the Seagulls went over for the World Club Challenge, and then when you eventually went over to play for Bradford, versus what you're seeing now at the moment?
Just with the way, the style of play or the ability, I guess their skill level. Guess when we went over there, Leeds I think they were at the top of their game, and they had plenty of strike power across the park. But I guess for the NRL, I think we break down teams a little bit differently. There's a lot of, I guess, structured play where in the UK it's like they love to throw the ball around when they can, and there's a lot of eyes up footy and ad-lib footy. So it's just 2 different styles. I don't think things are better than one comp's better than the other. So I think it's just total different coaching, and the way they approach their games over there is so different. I know that we work on a lot of defence wins games over here, and over there it's more so let's work on the attack, let's score more, not focus on let's limit them from scoring. It's more about the attack. So it's just 2 different, I guess, visions, and the way they look at the game is just different. And maybe they're just, I guess, a little bit more, I don't know, I guess, adventurous in the way they play than us. And
what about the dead ball line? If you look at, you watch it on TV, and there's like 5 meters, and I think is that so in the NRL? Would you imagine that kicking, halfbacks 5'8" kicking is a lot more? There's a lot more focus around
100%.
kicking into the in goal and chasing versus kick tries or scores or tries scored off kicks, versus in England where the chances of you landing it in the ball in the in goal is just so slim that really inhibits the ability of the halfback and 5'8" to kind of capitalize on, last tackle options and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. You make a good point there. It's I know that when I went over, there wasn't a great deal of focus on that particular thing, and working with those trick plays or things with the King game, and myself as Brett and I had over here, and I had it with Billy Slater as well. But no, that's definitely a point. No, I think that's why I guess they catch some of these Aussie teams out, because they're a lot better at running the ball and just, I guess, living by the sword, don't they? They two-edged sword. They play with the footy, and it's not really broken down, and they're not getting those repeat sets. They either go down there and they score, or they don't, and that's the way they just play, and that's the way they coach. So that's definitely something. Yeah, you definitely made a good point with.